Biological evolution is a long run. 600 million years of evolution of the nervous system, 80 million years primate evolution, 2.5 million years of stone tool-using hominid ancestors of us. It's been a long, long time. 100,000 generations, roughly, since the first stone tools. It's amazing to think about how long that is. And during that long run, our ancestors, the ones who were irritable and fearful, survived. And the ones who were all mellow and blissed out by the sunlight on the water, they didn't notice the leopard in the shadows, or the alpha male or female in their primate band who just wasn't happy with what they were doing. And so we've developed what in science is called a negativity bias, so that the brain preferentially looks for, reacts to, stores, and retrieves negative information. And as a result, one example is that typically in relationships, it takes about 5 positive interactions to balance one negative one. That's a 5-to-1 ratio. Not too good. That leaves us with this kind of trance that we're in, that we endlessly are scanning for threats. We're overestimating the threats in our environment. As I said earlier, those tendencies are easily manipulated. And when that happens, we depart from our natural resting state. I mean, the good news is that from the standpoint of purely biological evolution, without getting transcendental or cosmic or spiritual about it, I mean, our natural resting state, I think, is characterized by the 5 C's. It's conscious, calm, contented, caring, and creative. That's our natural resting state. That's fantastic. That's really good news. The bad news is that to survive and pass on our gene copies, we have the capacity to be driven from home at the crack of a twig or the cough of a leopard in the bushes nearby, or the beating, even in the distance, of the drums of war. And so, to me, the takeaway point is to feel, on the one hand, confident that the fundamental possibility for happiness and love and wisdom is truly inherent in our biological nature, whatever our spiritual nature may be. But in addition to that, to really recognize the capacity of the nervous system to tip into a state of fight or flight, feeling threatened, and moving into angry reactivity that's harmful to others and to oneself.
This tendency to overreact emotionally to threatening situations, that's built in, right? It's built in?
That's correct. That tendency, the capacity and the inclination is built in. That is entirely correct.
And so, in order to change that or overcome that or be that, one really needs to start focusing on, just to be awake and aware and focus on some positive experiences, and gradually you'll be able to get beyond that.
Yeah, the good news is that for many people, the majority of their experiences are actually fairly positive. So the negativity bias, positive outnumbers negative, really. And these are usually mild positive experiences outnumbering mild negative ones, 10-to-1, 20-to-1. So, it's pretty good. And that's not true for everyone's life, obviously, but it's true for many people's lives. So building on that, one, really focusing on positive facts and allowing those to become positive experiences is a very powerful way. People in daily life literally transform their lives in a few weeks and certainly in a few months and years. In terms of managing things like depression or anxiety or anger or lack of self-confidence or feeling ashamed or inadequate, you really can fill a hole in your heart by taking in a handful of times a day, half dozen or times a day, taking in the good. It's interesting how much people tend to focus on the negative, and they, among other things, they miss the good in themselves. They don't acknowledge the good facts about nature, their own inclinations, their own good heart. They also often don't notice how well other people treat them, truly. Ordinary kindness, ordinary respect, ordinary ring out them. To me, that's one thing. Another thing that a person can do over time in terms of this reactivity is to develop the capacity to have a kind of spaciousness around it. And it's interesting that new studies are starting to show that it seems like there are these neural networks in the middle of our brain, in our cortex, kind of in the midline here. I'm waving my hand over my head, right in the middle and pointing at the middle of my head. Those midline networks deal a lot with kind of daydreaming or just being in what I call the simulator, where we're just kind of caught up in our reactions and often thinking about the future, thinking about the past. When we're in the simulator, we're pretty much on autopilot, and we're just kind of carried along very often. But there are these lateral networks, lateral means side, on the brain, that light up when we're in a state of mindful awareness. Most people can sustain mindful awareness for a few seconds. The trick is to be able to train those lateral networks to stabilize and maintain a kind of panoramic bird's eye view. And when you do that, you really downregulate emotional reactivity.